What's going on, everybody? My name is Mark.
My name's Michael.
This is Business and Banter,
Banter.
where I don't shut my mouth and Mike talks some business.
All right. We have an interesting topic for you this week. We are discussing credit scores, the good, the bad, the ugly, and a really good opportunity here. Mark has went through a live experience of taking his credit score from a really crappy place to a phenomenal or on his way to being phenomenal score. So we'll get into that just one second.
I just had a visualization of Capital One and a whole bunch of different credit card logos just dragging me through a field.
Taking you from the pits of hell to the glory of heaven.
Yeah.
Great credit score.
There's like lounges and airports and stuff. It's really quite nice.
It's fantastic.
And I'm not really kidding about that. There are, once you get a better credit score, you get a whole different life.
There's a whole world out there.
There's a whole new world that like the universe really appreciates good credit.
So let's first ask, you might be asking, what is a good credit score these days?
And what is a bad one?
Well, what do you think?
So based on your experience, so when does a good credit score matter? It matters mostly when you're making big purchases, right? So you're in the real estate industry, so you know that a good credit score, when you're trying to get a mortgage, is really anything 700 or above. And you've explained to me that a bad credit score is anything below 800. No, I'm kidding.
That even got me
Yeah,
thinking, like, no, not exactly. No, but for New York City specifically, when you're trying to rent or trying to buy, if your credit score is below 700, you're going to be extremely limited. The managements, the landlords are looking at you as like, what's going on with this person? Even though 700, for those of you outside of New York or even within, but just not looking for renting or buying, it's a pretty decent score. 690, 680, and so forth. It's pretty decent. But realistically, flags are going off. If you're trying to get a really good mortgage rate, again, within New York, if you have a credit score of 720 and above, then you start to qualify for extra programs. But short answer, 700 for New York City. I would say maybe 670 outside of New York would be and up.
Yeah, you're not really. So I'm one reason why we're doing this topic this week, as Mike mentioned before, is because I literally in the last 2 years brought my credit score from a 550 to around 690 right now is the last time I checked. And once you start to get more financially aware, because I think one of the things that we hope to bring value-wise to you guys is to become more financially aware, you'll be checking your finances probably more of... I check my stuff like once a day, maybe once every 2 to 3 days. I like to keep up with everything. I like to make sure my credit score is okay. I like to make sure that there's no charges that I'm like, what the fuck about,
At the very least, monthly. Look over your bills.
Yeah.
Make sure you're charged for the right things. Make sure you're paying them off on time.
Right.
But we'll get into that in just a sec.
This is the difference between having a kid and not having a kid. Has brain...
Oh, absolutely. No, with the kid budget, I used to look at mine just at the end of each month, and been lucky enough. But I think my wife and I are leaning more and more towards doing it weekly. Yeah. Financial planning on a weekly basis, basically, like making sure we're still up to, we're hitting the marks that we need to hit, which would be our next video once we get the credit scores.
I think so, down.
Yeah. So we got a good score, 700 and above. That's when the little circle, like, it has the thresholds and it turns green. So you're in the green at 700 and up. Anything below 700,
on any simulated website,
it starts dropping in colors, like the terror threat in America. You're dropping below 600. They're coming for you.
Yeah, something already.
So bad rates are going to bad credit score. I would say, would you agree? Let's say 650 and below.
Yes.
And then that between 650 or 660 and 700 is like this gray area of like maybe and so forth.
So you mentioned before with regard to getting mortgages and stuff, right? Because that's one of the big reasons you would really care about getting a good credit score, is so you get approved for a mortgage or even as a renter. Now, what are the real benefits besides just being approved for a mortgage? I think you mentioned before something about lower interest rates, things like that.
Absolutely. So with a good credit score, you are opening up a world of really good stuff. You are as far as purchasing, you're going to be qualified for different programs that banks might have available. Some of them start at 700, others start at 720, and so forth. So depending on the banks, you might have a wide variety of different rates available to you. And we're talking about significant savings, like where if it could be a difference between the 3.7 interest rate or 3.9, and that's several $1,000s every month or throughout the year that you'd be saving. And depending on the spread of your credit score, it could really be a difference of well, if you're talking about the 550 side, but let's say you're in the low 600s
Right.
or a high 720, 750s, it could be almost a full point difference.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's also it's like per annual. It's definitely a savings.
The other thing for you, so low interest rates, okay, is going to be available to you. Number two, you're going to have an opportunity to negotiate a little bit better with any vendor that you're coming towards. All right, so you're mentioning leasing a car,
Yes.
or buying to finance and so forth. You're coming in and you're saying, hey, I have some decent money. Maybe I'm not, making hundreds of thousands, but it's okay salary. But check out my credit score, 750, 800. This person now knows most likely he's going to get this, whatever it is, whether it's a mattress purchase or a lease for a car or an apartment. This guy's going to get approved. Let me push this down the pipeline.
So now let's get to the most important subject. How do you fix it? Well, this is a big problem that a lot of people still have. So as we said a few times before, I did this. I came in the last around about 2 years from 550 to right now, last time I checked, which was like last week, 690. It's a tremendous jump. How did I do this? I was gonna make an inappropriate sex joke, but I'm not gonna do that. Okay. So
He wishes.
kind of would have been easier. Would have expedited the process a lot more, I feel like. Anyway. Okay. Here are the steps that we need
I
to...
have so many questions.
Questions and Q&A time will come after. Okay.
The sexual joke would have explained the approval, how to increase your credit score.
I'm going to plead the fifth on this one. How did I do this? Went from around 550 to right about 690. This is what I did. I got an account with Credit Karma. It gives you a breakdown of where you owe money, how much you're making, what you should be paying off first, and all that. I also got what they call a prepaid credit card with Capital One. What that is you call Capital One or you apply for it online. You're gonna have to put a deposit down, and that deposit is probably gonna be in the range of $100 to $200, and they should really approve you. I don't see why they wouldn't, for around $200 to $300 credit. So basically the way it works is this. It's not a liability for them, which is why they do this, because you're putting the money up front, and all you have to do is you have to pay the card on time every month for a few months straight. And after they see consistent payments, you can either apply for a new card, one without like the deposit necessary, or maybe they might even approach you. It happened with me. They just like sort of sent me a $2,000 card in the mail, a $2,000 limit, I should say, and they raised the limit on my prepaid card, which I recently closed out. I recently closed out the prepaid card.
Great.
And so now all you have to do is make your monthly payments on time. But let's get even more specific about it. What does that mean? Well, it means, number one, you never ever want to put more than 10% of the limit on the card. So if you have a card with a $2,000 limit, you never really want to put more than $200 on the card. And if you do put $200 on the card, you want to pay it off the same day. It will affect your credit score. For example, the camera that we're shooting on, it cost a little bit less than $1,000. I put that on my Capital One card. I paid it off literally 24 hours later. That killed my credit score by about 20 points in 1 week, just because I utilized the card by 50% too much, even for a 48-hour period. So be very, very conscious of the fact that your credit is a very, very delicate thing. And any sudden movement can and will be held against you in the court of credit.
So just to summarize it, you went ahead and you said, you know what, I need to show them, the credit bureau, these mystical creatures, that I can manage my financials. And you go into a bank and you said, first you identified where the problems are.
Yes.
You went and got a full free credit report.
Yes.
Which Credit Karma is one. You can go to your banking institution. Almost all of them offer some sort of credit monitoring or access to your credit reports. There are three main ones. You can find links below that give you annual once a year full free report. Don't ever pay anybody more than $1 to get access to your report.
You shouldn't pay anybody anything.
But some of these, they're charging, I think, $1 for some transactional nonsense or something.
Interesting.
Like that. But in either case, don't fall for the scams of like, hey, you give us $40 and we're going to show you all this and that. Don't do any of that. Don't pay anybody. All this information is free. So Credit Karma is who you used.
In conjunction with Capital One. Capital One is very, very good. They have a phenomenal simulator. I highly recommend.
Then you went ahead and said, you know what? I want to control it, and I want to put $200 on a, what'd you call that card?
It was a prepaid credit card.
A prepaid credit card.
They call it a secure card.
Secured card. So it makes sense. There's $200 that can pay off whatever the balance is at the end. So
yes.
The maximum you could spend is $200.
There's no liability.
Or
$500. I believe there is
or
interest.
$1,000, whatever you want.
Yes.
Now, if you're not paying that off, they'll maybe charge interest. But the whole point is to only spend within that limit so that you don't have to pay more interest. You
Right.
don't have to continue accumulating, which you can't outside of that $200. They
Right.
cut you off. Now, because of that, once you showed them consistency, you were able to then go ahead and elevate. They said, this guy is good. He's rebuilding his credit. Let's offer him an actual full-on fledged credit card, and they started you off at around $2,000.
Yes.
Now, what he also says is a great point. Don't overcharge more than 10%.
Yes.
Once you go above 10% on your debt, it begins to knock down your points very quickly.
Yes.
Fantastic.
It's something called credit card utilization. They look at that a lot. There's also one very big thing everybody should be aware of, which is a hard inquiry and a soft inquiry. A soft inquiry isn't going to touch your score. A hard inquiry is. A hard inquiry is you going to ask for an increase on your card, or you going to have a mortgage broker do a credit check, or from a car, like loan perspective as well. A soft inquiry is you looking at your credit score. Things like that. I don't know what the other soft inquiries are. If there are any, there might be.
Well, so I can tell you that for those of you who are apartment seeking, it's okay if you go through multiple managements and they run your credit. You're not going to get dinged. The credit bureaus have began to identify landlords or real estate type of ding, and they don't take it against you.
Very, very valuable
So
to know.
it's fantastic. And even if there is, it's an incredibly minimal. We're talking a point,
Yeah,
no more than that.
nothing that's really going to hurt
because it's
you.
associated to a future larger
Yeah.
payment. It's not just buying a random TV or something like that, where you're trying to get a credit increase or a new credit card at Best Buy, for example.
Now, something else that you guys should all be aware of when dealing with credit cards is when you go to get a credit card, say for example, it's not a prepaid secure one like we were talking about before, and it's a regular, like, just pay as you go credit card, or pay monthly credit card, I should say. I'm just telling you from what I've been advised by bank tellers before, when you go to apply for a regular credit card, and the credit card company asks you for your annual income, they're not allowed to check to see what that actually is.
So there are two more things that we should mention which you can do to try to improve your credit score, okay, and to reduce your debt. So first, consolidate your debt. If you have 5, 6, 15 different credit cards and each one has a different amount of money that you owe, okay, you can do one. You can consolidate all of them to an already open credit card, which is giving you the least interest rate. You can call up any of the credit cards and say, look, I would like to transfer all of my debt to one place. What's the best rate you can give me? Some credit cards will offer you an opportunity to have zero interest for a month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever the deal is, so that you can transfer all of your debt, because now you're going to owe all this money to this particular credit card company. And it helps you to A, streamline your payments. B, you could potentially, especially if they're giving you several months of interest free, great, you're not paying any interest. That's extra money in your pocket. Or if you're smart, extra money towards paying down your debt. But what you're trying to go for, the goal here, is to make sure that you have an opportunity of zero interest for X amount of time so that you can stop paying that interest, or at least save that money and throw it into the principal.
The interest
which is
gets
the actual
really
debt.
expensive.
Now, regarding interest and regarding the late payment fees, which could add up more than the actual debt that you have, ask to not pay it. Ask them to wipe it. You'd be surprised.
In specific, what I've done in the past is you call these companies and you give them a little bit of a sob story. I'm not telling you, again, to do anything illegal or anything like that. I'm just saying to make people understand that you might be going through some hard times and that things might be tough. And the more you get them to empathize with you or sympathize with you, the more likely they are to remove said fees and whatnot.
Right.
I'm just telling you the ways in which would probably work for you to realistically get these people to take away the fees. Because there's going to be times we're just calling them and saying, hey, I don't want to pay these fees. They're going to be like, well, that's too fucking bad.
Right. So that is a very good point, because you don't want to come at this with, yelling at everybody, screaming at everybody. This really is a relatively delicate situation, and they don't owe you anything. Like, you owe them, realistically. And so when you get that first customer service agent on the phone, you be as polite as you possible, and have either a true story, because sometimes it is tough. Sometimes family passes away, sometimes
hard times happen.
Like, real stories are there. And in other times, you just screwed up, and that's okay to say as well. I recently, just over the New Year's, skipped my mind. I was been relatively on time and paying everything. But
I can't believe you.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just mostly, and it happened. This was the second time because the first time was when my kid was just born. A couple of months after, it was just my head was all over the place, and I was like, man, I'm again 5-6 days late on paying the bills. Not because I don't have the money, just literally forgot.
No.
And that's what I told them. I called up and said, just had a kid born. I'm on 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Cut me some slack. And you'd be surprised. They wiped any of the late fees across all the platforms wherever I was late. They also wiped the interest that I owed on that for that month. And they were willing to do what I learned is that you can do this. Let's say I missed it for several months. They would have potentially approved to wipe all the interest from before or credit me back.
And I think that ties into a whole different subject, which I'll just touch upon right now, that every company is putting a very strong, well, the smart companies are putting a very strong focus, and not just in credit cards, but in everything, are putting a very strong focus on customer experience. And so that definitely ties into the fact that they're trying to give you the best, like, they want to retain you. They want you to keep using your cards. But yeah, I think that does that cover it?
I think that covers it up. So if you have any questions on it, leave it in the comments below.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to retouch some of those subjects. Again, this is from personal experiences, and
I just went through it. I was just able to do it, and I know you guys can too. And I know that a lot of people are dealing with financial hardships in this country. The more expensive things get, it's just it gets very, very difficult and very trying.
Our next episode will be about financial planning, and that will help. That'll tie in nicely with credits.
Guys, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, and see you next time.